This is what many prepared people misunderstand completely. They spend thousands of dollars turning their homes into fortresses, installing visible security cameras, building high fences, and even adding bars to the windows. And you know what it really does? It creates a huge target on your property that says, "Hey, this person has valuables worth protecting." Today, I will tell you how to completely change this approach and make your home the last place someone would want to break into in times of collapse. My name is Zach. I've been preparing since 2012. What I'm about to share with you is called the strategy of the gray man. It has allowed me to sleep peacefully for over 10 years and will change everything you thought about home security. The main principle here is simple, yet contradictory. The best defense is not to make your home impregnable, but to make it invisible. Or, even better, make it look as if it has already been emptied and contains nothing valuable. Think of it from the perspective of the wrongdoer. When everything falls apart and people become desperate, they will seek easy targets with obvious rewards. They want to spend their limited energy and risks on places where there is clearly food, water, supplies, and possibly a working generator. They will not waste time on a house that looks abandoned, already robbed, or where the family appears as desperate as everyone else. Before continuing, let me clarify one thing. It's not about living in fear. It's not about turning your home into a gloomy bunker where you are constantly in a state of paranoia. It's about being smart and strategic so you can live a normal life until something truly happens, then smoothly switch to low-profile mode to ensure your family's safety. I spent over 10 years perfecting these concepts, and I am going to show you how to implement them in your home, whether you live in the suburbs, a village, or even an apartment. Let's start with what I call the paradox of attractiveness. Most of us are taught throughout our lives to maintain our possessions, to care for their condition, to take pride in them. This is excellent in normal times. But in the conditions of collapse, a perfectly manicured lawn, immaculate flower beds, and fresh paint work against you. They signal normalcy and resources in a world where neither exists anymore. Therefore, the first step in creating the gray man's home is to understand what makes property attractive to desperate people, and then systematically eliminate each of these attractions. Walk through your neighborhood right now with fresh eyes. Imagine you are someone who hasn't eaten for 3 days and is looking for a house to attack. What catches your attention? Solar panels shining on the roof? A well-kept vegetable garden full of fresh produce? Outdoor equipment looking new and expensive? Clearly visible security cameras? A house that is simply too clean and tidy compared to its surroundings? I call all of this signals of prosperity. And during a crisis, each of these signals becomes a burden. Now, let's move on to something interesting. We will use controlled neglect. I'm not suggesting you let your home fall into disrepair. I am talking about him looking like he is starting to fall apart, while in reality, you are making him stronger from the inside, where it is not visible. Let me explain what I mean. In 2017, I began experimenting with this concept on my property. I stopped mowing the lawn so meticulously and let the grass grow a bit between cuts. I deliberately left some leaves in the corners of my yard. I covered part of the fence with a tarp, as if I had damages I couldn't afford to fix. From the street, my house looked like that of a person experiencing financial difficulties. But do you know what I was actually doing at that time? I replaced every short rifle in the door frames with 4-inch screws that were deeply embedded in the wall. I was adding a protective film to the windows that is completely invisible, but makes the glass incredibly difficult to break. I was reinforcing my garage door from the inside with steel plates. You see, there is a huge difference between looking hard to crack and looking not worth the effort to crack. The first makes persistent people try harder or bring more friends. The second makes them pass by your house and go bother someone else. This is a key difference that most people do not notice at all. Let me give another example from my experience. I have a neighbor who installed large, obvious security cameras all around his house. These are modern devices, clearly visible. They probably cost him several thousand. What message does this convey? It tells everyone that he is concerned about security, which means he probably has something to protect. Meanwhile, my security cameras are hidden in fake electrical boxes and landscaping elements. No one knows they are there. If someone inspects my property, they consider it an easy target without surveillance. But I have complete coverage of all approaches and motion-activated recordings that have been working for several years. I actually caught people checking houses on my street, and you can see them slowing down in front of my neighbor's house with visible cameras, clearly contemplating it, while they barely glance at mine, because it looks like there's nothing worth the effort. Now let's talk about something that most prepared people completely overlook, and this is one of the biggest mistakes I see. This is what I call the signature control triangle. It includes your light signature, sound signature, and scent signature. Normally, no one thinks about these things. When the electricity is out for a whole week, and most homes are plunged into darkness and silence, any sign of activity in your house becomes a beacon attracting attention from distant streets. Control of light is crucial, and many people seriously underestimate how far light can spread at night. I suggest you conduct an experiment this evening. Turn off all the lights in your house, leaving only a small desk lamp in the back room. Then go outside and take a walk around your neighborhood. You will be amazed at how noticeable this single source of light is, even through the curtains you thought were thick enough. I saw the flame of a candle visible from more than 200 yards on a truly dark night. This is no exaggeration. When there is no surrounding light from street lamps, other houses, or passing cars, even the smallest source of light stands out like a beacon. The solution lies in multi-level dimming. This is how I do it at home. The first level is reflective insulation that can be bought at any hardware store. One side has a shiny aluminum coating and the other is ordinary insulation. The shiny side should face inside the room, while the ordinary side faces the window. This creates a barrier that reflects both heat and light back into your space. But don't stop there. Add a second layer of thick moving blankets or heavy curtains. Make sure there are absolutely no gaps around the edges through which light can seep. I use spring curtains that fit tightly against the window frame and lay blankets in the middle at least 6 inches. This is what I learned from my own experience. You need to test this outside during the day. Ask someone inside to use a bright flashlight or lamp and move them near the windows while you stand outside at different distances and angles. You will likely find that light seeps from places you never suspected. Close every crack, for even a thin line of light along the edge of the window can give you away from a distance when everything else is dark. Now you have the next task, sound. And this requires changing your family's behavior, which, to be honest, is harder than any physical modifications in the house. When the familiar background noise of civilization disappears, every sound you make is heard from a great distance. No more humming cars, running air conditioners, neighbors mowing lawns, or playing music. Suddenly, every step, every conversation, every sound made by the dishes in the sink becomes audible to passersby. I started teaching my family this many years ago, introducing what we call quiet hours. Every Sunday evening, starting from dinner until bedtime, we practice moving around the house silently and speaking only in hushed voices. At first, the children thought it was silly, but I turned it into a game. Anyone who makes unnecessary noise has to put $1 in the jar. At the end of the month, the person with the least money in the bank chooses our next family activity. 3 years have passed, and my children can move around the house like ghosts when needed. This skill can literally save their lives in the future. In addition to behavior, physical changes can also be made. Foam door seals significantly muffle sound. Carpets and rugs reduce the noise of footsteps. I even added acoustic panels behind some wall decorations in the rooms where we could be during the crisis. No one knows they are there, but they absorb sound perfectly. The main thing is that these changes must be made in advance because trying to suddenly change family behavior in a real crisis situation is almost impossible. Now let's talk about smells, because that's what always confuses people. You're cooking dinner, maybe beans with rice or canned stew, nothing special. But when everyone around is hungry and hasn't eaten hot food for several days, this smell spreads far and becomes like a bell announcing, "Here is food, come and take it." I realized this during a week-long power outage in 2019. We cooked on a camping stove in the kitchen with closed windows and a working exhaust fan. In 20 minutes, neighbors I barely knew began to knock on the door, asking if we had any extra food. They were decent people in a relatively insignificant situation, but even they were drawn to our house by the smell of cooking food. In the event of a real collapse, one must assume that this same smell will attract much more dangerous people. The solution is to cook under pressure when possible, as it seals in all odors. When you need to cook in a conventional way, choose the time strategically. If other neighbors are also cooking, your smells blend together. If you are the only one cooking, you stand out. Weather conditions are important. High humidity keeps smells close to the ground. A light breeze quickly disperses them. Rain helps to mask the smells of cooking. Start paying attention to these patterns now, so you can make wise decisions later. Here is another point I'm working on, but most people do not think about it. I always keep various odor masking agents on hand. Dryer sheets can help mask food odors if you're cooking indoors and need to move around the house. The coffee grounds heating on the stove create a strong aroma that can mask other cooking smells. This may even signal to outsiders that you have only a last reserve left as you brew coffee instead of drinking it. Cleaners with the scent of pine can create the impression that you are trying to clean and disinfect rather than cook and eat. These little things are important, as they can play a decisive role in whether you remain unnoticed or are discovered. Now, I want to share something that has become a real discovery for many people in our community. I understand that we talked about quite serious things, and in fact, preparation can seem overwhelming, especially if you are just starting. You contemplate safety, food storage, water, energy, and it quickly accumulates in both costs and complexity. Therefore, I prepared material that will help solve one of the biggest problems people face: food security. This is a completely free guide that shows how to turn just $50 into food supplies for 90 days for your family. This is not a theoretical list of expensive frozen meals. These are real products from the store, specific brands and prices that you can buy right now and store in any house or apartment. The guide presents an exact shopping list, 37 essential items for preparation that most people never consider, simple storage tricks that work in any conditions, emergency meals that can be prepared without fuel or electricity, and even a snack from a gas station that can be used for barter in difficult situations. I used this system myself, and hundreds of people have told me it was the push they needed to finally start preparing instead of just thinking about it. It's completely free. No tricks, no need for a credit card. Just let me know where to send it. I sincerely believe that everyone should have at least 3 months of food security, and this guide makes it achievable, even if you have a limited budget or think you don't have storage space. Now let's return to how to make your house invisible. We need to talk about early warning systems because you cannot protect yourself from a threat you do not know about. The good news is that you don't need expensive equipment to know when someone is checking your property. Some of the best alarms are silent, require no energy, and cost almost nothing. Here is one of my favorite methods that I have been using for many years. Take empty aluminum cans that are sold with soda or beer. Place them on thin strips of wood or metal along your fence, near the gates, under the windows, anywhere someone might try to sneak in. When someone bumps into your fence or tries to climb over it, these cans will fall and make a sound. But here is the trick. Even if you don't hear them fall because you are sleeping, or they fell when you were not home, you will see that they have been moved the next morning. This indicates that someone has been lurking around your property, and now you know to raise your level of vigilance. Another technique I use is called flour trap. Sprinkle a thin layer of flour or very fine dirt on the paths where someone might walk, under the windows, near the gates, along the wall of your house, anywhere out of sight but usable by those trying to approach unnoticed. Check these places every morning, and any traces or disturbed areas will immediately show you that someone has been there. The beauty of this system is that it heals itself. Just smooth the surface, and you are ready for the next night. I have caught people more than once watching the houses in my neighborhood using exactly this method. If you have some money to invest, surveillance cameras are a great solution. But here's the thing. Don't make them noticeable. Hide them in fake rocks, disguised as ordinary landscape elements. Place in unexpected locations. The goal is not always to catch someone at the crime scene. The main thing is to know that someone was nearby to appropriately adjust the level of safety and vigilance. I have cameras installed that cover all approaches to my house, and I review the footage every morning. Most of the time, there is nothing unusual, but twice in the last 5 years, I noticed people who were clearly observing the houses on my street. And because I knew about it, I was able to strengthen my security and closely monitor the situation until the threat passed. Motion sensor lights can be treacherous, as they can reveal that someone is home. I use them in outbuildings and remote places away from home, but not near the main doors and windows. Sometimes it's better to know someone is nearby without letting them know that you know. This gives you an advantage and the opportunity to act, which you lose if they realize they have been detected. Now let's talk about multi-layered protection. Even with the best security system, there may come a moment when someone decides to test your defenses. Here, having multiple layers of security becomes absolutely essential. Imagine your property as an onion with layers, each serving its function and giving you time. Your outer layer can be 50 to 100 yards from the house. Here you control how people approach your property. Use landscaping wisely. The pile of brushwood you left actually directs people away from one side of your house and leads them to an area where you have the best view and tactical advantage. An old car or broken equipment in your yard is positioned to block certain pathways and force people to walk through the areas you have prepared. I learned this by studying military defensive positions. You don't just randomly place obstacles. You use them to guide people where you want. In my case, there is only one convenient approach to the house from the street that does not require overcoming significant obstacles. And this approach is best seen from my house, giving me the longest lines of sight and providing the least cover for those approaching. They do not know this. They just think they are taking the easiest path. But I deliberately made this path the simplest to see their approach. The courtyard itself is another level of defense. Clear lines of sight are very important here, but you also want to eliminate places where someone could hide and plan their actions. I know people who strategically plant thorny bushes under windows and along fences. They look decorative, but in reality, they are painful barriers that slow down movement and make noise if someone tries to pass through them. Hawthorns, barberries, and thorny shrubs are all excellent options. These plants have serious thorns that can deter even the most persistent intruders. Know the distances from your windows to various points on the property. I measured and remembered these distances myself. The line of trees is 75 yards away. The corner of the fence is 30 yards away. The mailbox is 40 yards away. Why is this important? The thing is, if you need to use a weapon for self-defense, knowing whether something is 20 yards or 50 can be the deciding factor between effective protection and wasted ammunition, or a miss. I regularly train at the shooting range, so this knowledge is automatic for me. Your home is the next level of protection, and it relates to those hidden reinforcements we discussed earlier. Every entrance must be reinforced so that it is not visible from the outside. Door frames with 4-inch screws twisted into the wall studs, protective film on the windows, reinforced strike plates on the doors, improved locks, especially on sliding doors known for their weakness. The goal is to make your home significantly harder to break into than it seems at first glance, which will give you precious time if someone attempts to enter. I want to emphasize one important thing. Time is your most valuable resource for defense. Every minute the intruder spends trying to enter your home is another minute for you to prepare. Get your family to safety, call for help if possible, or take a defensive position if not. Most criminals surrender within 30 seconds to a minute if they cannot quickly break in. They look for easy targets, not hard work. Therefore, even small improvements in the security of doors and windows can be the deciding factor between a successful break-in and the intruders moving on to someone else. Your last line of defense is what we call a safe room, or fortified position. This is usually an interior space, preferably on the top floor if you have one, which you have fortified and stocked with necessary supplies. This room should have a sturdy door, preferably with a solid core or even steel if possible. The lock must be reliable and not easily picked. The room must have everything necessary for your family's survival for at least 3 days without leaving it. I'm talking about water, no less than 1 gallon per person per day. About food that requires no cooking or refrigeration. A bucket with a lid that can serve as an emergency toilet, as dignity takes a back seat when safety is at stake. Ways to communicate with the outside world, whether it's a mobile phone with a spare battery, a radio, or another method, a first aid kit including any prescription medications needed by your family, flashlights with spare batteries, and yes, weapons if you are trained and confident in their use. This safe room serves 2 purposes. If intruders enter your home, it is a place where your family can hide to wait them out or await help. But this is also your command center for monitoring what happens in the rest of your house and on your property. I have a small monitor that displays images from my security cameras. Even if I find myself locked in a room, I can see what is happening and make informed decisions about further actions. But here's what is important that many overlook. Sometimes the best defense is not to fight at all. Sometimes it's better to simply disappear until the threat passes. It is here that having several hiding places and escape routes becomes a true salvation. Your home should have at least 2 or 3 spots where your family can hide, and that are not noticeable during a quick glance. A fortified cabinet with ventilation, space under the stairs if it's large enough, or a basement that has been slightly furnished. These shelters must be equipped with essential items: water, a small supply of food, a means of quiet communication, a toilet in case you have to stay there for several hours, and quiet activities for children so they do not worry or make noise. The key to good hiding places is that you can hear what is happening in the rest of the house without being detected. You need to be able to distinguish when someone is simply taking obvious valuables and leaving, and when someone is conducting a thorough search, believing that someone is still in the house. This knowledge determines whether you stay hidden or move towards the exit, because hiding inside is not always the solution. Sometimes, especially if someone sets your house on fire, or if an organized group conducts a thorough search, the safest option is to leave it completely. You need escape routes that do not lead through the main entrance, and every family member must know and practice them. Windows on the 2nd floor with rope ladders that you actually used, exits from the basement to places with good cover, even crawl spaces leading outside, if you have them. Our family practices these routes twice a year, including training in the dark with flashlights, as that is when they may be needed. Every escape route must lead to a predetermined meeting place away from your home, where you can gather and assess the situation. Our meeting takes place in the neighbor's storage, located about 100 yards from us. We have permission to use it, they know about our plan, and we have prepared a small package with necessary items in case they are needed. From this spot, we can observe the house without being noticed and decide if it is safe to return. If not, we have a backup meeting place a quarter mile away. And here is what I must say clearly, as it is important. Your house and your belongings can be replaced, but family cannot. Never risk lives for material goods, no matter how much time and money you have invested in your preparations. I know people who have been stockpiling supplies for years, and I understand the emotional attachment to these investments. However, in a situation where life and death are at stake, things remain just things. You can recover if you are alive. Returning from the dead is impossible. Let me change the subject and discuss what often goes unnoticed in training circles. How to stay healthy and sane when you are under stress for weeks or months. Your body and mind are not meant for constant anxiety. If you do not actively work to maintain some sense of normality, people start making dangerous decisions. From a medical standpoint, in conditions of collapse, even a simple scratch or infection can become life-threatening if you cannot receive proper medical care. Every family should have at least one person who has completed a full course in first aid. And I am not talking about basic CPR training. I mean a wilderness first aid or tactical medicine course that teaches how to deal with serious injuries using limited resources. Your medical supplies should include much more than just a Band-Aid and aspirin. Learn how to properly clean and treat wounds. Learn to recognize the early signs of infection. Learn to improvise medical supplies when you run out of the real ones. For example, clean tampons can be effectively used to plug wounds. Hygienic pads are great as large bandages. Honey has real antibacterial properties and has been used in medicine for thousands of years. Sugar can be used to treat wounds in certain situations. Double-sided tape can help secure the edges of a wound in an emergency. These are not perfect solutions, but they are better than nothing, and knowing these things can save lives. Mental health is as important as physical health, and it is often underestimated.